two main causes of kidney failure are diabetes and hypertension or high blood pressure. The number one cause out of those two is diabetes.
Welcome to Issues from the Heart. Today we have the privilege of having Miss Helena HAYES with us, dialysis nurse. Welcome, Mrs. HAYES.
Thank you.
We're so glad to have you today. Well, you are a dialysis nurse. That is a nurse that deals with people who have experienced kidney failure. Today we're going to be exploring some of the things that you can tell us to help us avoid this and what the symptoms of this condition are. What first led you to become a nurse?
I've always wanted to be in healthcare. I've always been intrigued by our bodies and how our bodies work and how we can care for them and make ourselves better.
What are some of the specific challenges you have being a dialysis nurse that other nurses may not deal with?
The specificity of the disease, the fact that it's a chronic illness and it's not a one and done, and sometimes the patients as well as the nurses get burnt out with the stringent regimen of being on dialysis.
So how often do they have to come and receive treatment?
My patients typically come Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, or Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. They have to have 3 dialysis treatments a week, and each treatment averages about 3 to 4 hours a session.
Wow, so that is definitely a major commitment for everybody involved. What education is necessary for people that may be interested in becoming a dialysis nurse?
Just the typical, you can have an associate's degree in nursing, which is usually a 2-year degree, or you can have a bachelor's degree in nursing. And then once you get into the nursing field, there is a special program at the hospitals usually for if you want to have the specialty in dialysis, become a certified dialysis nurse.
Interesting. So what was your journey to becoming a dialysis nurse?
I started out as a dialysis technician. There was an apprenticeship program at my high school, and I would leave high school in my senior year and go to work. Then after I worked as a dialysis technician for a while, I decided to go back to school and get my nursing degree, and then I just continued on in that same field.
Excellent. And what wonderful Guilford County school did you graduate from with that degree?
I graduated from Dudley High School, James B. Dudley High School in Greensboro, and then I went to GTCC, and then I went to South University in High Point.
Excellent, excellent. So what are some of the things that a new nurse might need as far as advice? What would you tell someone considering going into this field?
It takes a lot of tenacity. It takes a lot of hard work. And if you have a setback, as with most fields, you have a setback, keep pushing, because we definitely need more nurses.
Absolutely. So getting into kidney health and dialysis, what are some things you can tell someone that are symptoms of kidney failure? Because I know most people only think don't drink sodas, but there's so much more. What are the things that cause kidney failure?
The two main causes of kidney failure are diabetes and hypertension or high blood pressure. The number one cause out of those two is diabetes, and that affects a lot of us in the African American community. Diabetes is the number one cause of kidney disease and kidney failure in this country, and a lot of people don't follow their regimen, take their medications, check their glucose levels like they're supposed to, take their medications like they're supposed to, as well as the hypertension. And the misconception a lot of time in our community as African American people is, oh, I feel okay. And once you get to the stage of kidney disease or kidney failure, it's irreversible. It is a chronic condition. So the only way to deal with it is dialysis or transplant. Let me also say that transplant is not considered, on my end of things, transplant is not considered a cure. It is considered a treatment option. So if you are a candidate for a transplant, or if you know someone who is on dialysis or struggling with kidney disease or kidney failure, they are a candidate for transplant. There's a lot that goes into that, because transplant is a 50-50 chance it will work. It's a 50-50 chance that it won't work. It may work for years. It may not work at all. So on our end of things, the transplant is considered a treatment option and not a cure for the kidney disease.
Interesting. So, if I'm concerned about my kidney health, what are some of the things I can look for if my kidneys are starting to be bad? Like, what are some of the symptoms that people can be aware of to know when to go to the doctor?
Oh, that's a good question. That is a really good question. One of the main symptoms that people have reported having is shortness of breath, which that symptom can also mirror a lot of other things like heart problems. But one of the main issues is shortness of breath because as your kidneys decline in their function, your body starts to retain fluid. So people start to have shortness of breath. They start to have swelling in their hands and feet. Sometimes the swelling is in their faces. They start to complain of nausea, vomiting. They start to complain of having like a metallic taste in their mouth, like you have a penny in your mouth. Those are some of the symptoms to most definitely look for. Extreme fatigue, weakness, feeling tired all the time. Not just, oh, I've done a lot today, but a tiredness that is debilitating.
Absolutely. So basically the same things we've been told, overall health. So, okay, everybody's thinking it. Do sodas have anything to do with kidney failure?
Sodas can contribute because a lot of people who are diabetic tend to drink a lot of soda.
Got you.
So the sodas by themselves do not. However, once you are already in kidney disease or kidney failure, you are encouraged to not. There's different types of sodas that you cannot drink. Dark sodas, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper. Because the dark colas contain too much phosphorus, which your kidneys no longer working to process out of your bloodstream. So a lot of people think, oh, sodas. No, your kidneys do a whole lot more than just produce urine in your body. Your kidneys help regulate red blood cell production. Your kidneys help regulate your blood pressure. There are hormones that are secreted in your kidneys that help tell your body when to make red blood cells. A whole lot of things your kidneys do that people don't realize. And after you've reached the point of needing dialysis or getting to kidney failure, then there are a lot of things like the caffeine in the sodas are bad for you.
Absolutely. Is it a good idea to follow a kidney healthy diet? For example, I know that after your kidneys have failure or you have kidney disease, you can't eat certain things. Does it help if you start that beforehand, or is it just one of those things that you have to do after you're diagnosed?
That depends on the patient. A lot of patients, again, are already diabetic by the time they come to us. So you're already on a pretty stringent diet. If you are following the diet, your sugar diabetes diet, the way as best you can, the way you're supposed to, most likely you can avoid the kidney failure or the kidney disease. You can prolong the process a lot longer. But it is a good habit. Decrease your salt intake, watch your fat intake, try to drink more water, stay away from the sodas and the sugary drinks, the processed foods. Try to stay as active as possible. That's vitally important as well.
Absolutely. Can you share a particularly memorable patient experience? I know you've been a nurse for 26 years, is it? What is one patient? I know as an educator, I have certain students that stand out. Is there one specifically memorable patient experience you've had?
It's hard to narrow it down to one.
I know, right?
There was this one patient who would always come in the lobby before treatment. The other patients, there are several patients waiting in the lobby for their treatments to begin, and we would have to go out to the lobby and call the patients one at a time. This particular patient would always gather the group for prayer in the lobby before we started calling patients in. And we used to always tease him about it, and it really broke my heart when he passed away. Yeah, and they stopped having the prayers in the lobby after he passed away.
Absolutely. You don't realize how much that type of thing means until it changes. What is one of the biggest misconceptions people have about being a nurse? Like we think, ew, you're going to be dealing with, wound care or this or that or that. What is the biggest positive misconception and the biggest negative? Like something that you wouldn't know or really get on your nerves about being a nurse?
A lot of people think that working in healthcare is blood and guts and needles, and that's part of it. But a lot of it is interacting with patients on a more social level, on a more psychological, mental level, interacting with their family members, trying to explain to people what it is you're doing and why it's important. That and then also the documentation, the paperwork that goes into it, because you have to have a paper trail of what's needed for the patient, what you did to the patient, so that the next person can know how to continue that care for that person.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think most fields have that social component because they've never experienced this before. They don't know what's happening to them. They've never done this. And for you, it's normal, but you have the patients to help them understand what's really going on. What advice would you give an aspiring nurse that's considering this specialization versus pediatrics or oncology? What would you tell a nurse that chooses dialysis over the others? What does she need to have?
I have some friends who work in the ED, in the emergency department, and I have some friends who work in telemetry, and I have some friends who work in the cardiac floor.
Okay, hold on for us people. What's telemetry?
So, like the cardiac floor, like with the heart. And the difference is with those other specialties, sometimes you can treat those patients and they move on. The patients they go with their treatments, they do what they need to do. They may be fine for months at a time or for years at a time, but our patients, we see them at regular intervals all the time, and these are chronic patients. They're going to be with you until the Lord says otherwise. And so sometimes that can be kind of taxing, and it's difficult to maintain that boundary of nurse-patient. And they come in and they tell you about their grandchildren, and they're telling you about where they went on vacation, and they're asking you questions about, well, what do you think about this? And you become so much a part of their life because it's not like a one and done. Because the nurse that I know that works in the emergency room, she says, we come in, we stitch you up, we give you a pill, we fix your problem, and I may never see that person again. But on my end, we're working with patients who have a chronic condition who begin to depend on us for so many things. Like, we just spend so much time together because they are chronic patients. They have to be here. And so that's and then when they're not there anymore, you try to be professional, and you have to be professional. But it does prick your heart when that patient is no longer there, and you know you're working with these people, and eventually they're not going to be there anymore because this is a chronic condition.
Absolutely. And I guess that could be a good or a bad thing. I've been at schools where I was just with the kids for 1 year, then move on. Then I've been at schools where I had them 4 years. Some of the students I was glad to have 4 years, and some I was glad when they moved.
Yes.
Please graduate. Okay,
Yes.
So I'm sure it's the same way with patients.
Yes.
Some of them you love seeing them, and some of them you're like, Lord, you gonna be here for how long?
Right.
So I definitely
Right.
understand that
Absolutely.
that part of it. I never thought about that you're with them forever, basically, unless they get a transplant.
Right.
So how do you just explained this, build rapport while still maintaining the standard of treatment as far as professionalism? You have to keep that line clear. What do you do when a patient is expressing anxiety or concerns about the dialysis, when they don't want to keep coming? How do you calm that patient down? What strategies do you do to encourage them to feel calm especially when they first start treatment? When they have that, I think it's called the graft in their arms, and they're feeling overwhelmed. How do you calm them down?
That is a wonderful question. Because a lot of the patients, when they first begin, they don't know what to expect. They don't know what I'm about to do to them. They were just told to show up on this day at this time, and the nurses there will tell you what to do from there. They don't, and it's important that we don't just act like it's just another day at the job, that you treat this patient like they're the only patient in the room because it's their first time. And if I know if a patient is coming, I will call if I have their information, which most of the time I do. I will call and say, hey, can you come by before your treatment day? So we can go over paperwork, so you can take a tour of the facility, so you can see what it looks like in here, and we can talk about any questions you may have. I can introduce you to the social worker, to the dietitian, to your team, who will be here for you as resources for the various needs that you may have. And if they have, make them feel comfortable. Ask me if there's something I'm saying that I'm saying it too fast. I'll say it again. Or if you don't remember everything I'm telling you, When you come back for your regular treatment day, we can go over this again. We give them bags with blankets and pillows in the bag to try to make them feel more comfortable when they come for their treatments. We encourage them, bring your tablet, bring your iPad, whatever makes you comfortable, and we make accommodations. If you need a spouse to sit with you on the first day of treatment, the first couple days of treatment to make you not feel so overwhelmed, whatever we have to do with that patient to make the transition as smooth as possible. And sometimes we have to give the information in bits and pieces because it is a lot of information that they need to know. And then we follow up with them after the first 30 days to say, hey, how's it going? Are you okay? Is there any needs that you have? Are you having a hard time filling your prescriptions? Is there any resources that you have? Because a lot of times we've had patients who are younger patients who are working full time, who this was a blindside situation and their whole lives have changed and now I have to be on dialysis. I've had patients to ask me, okay, so when do I graduate? Because they think of it as a cancer treatment, like you go for a certain number of treatments and then you're done. And you have to kind of give that information really, really cautiously because it can be a difficult situation for them to know, hey, wait, I have to be here forever? So I've had those things happen, and it just depends on the patient. And some people and we give paperwork. Here's a book about this, or here's some paperwork about this. And you have to sign your plan of care. You have to do. So we have to try to give patients little bits of information at small intervals of time. Like, okay, we're going to talk about your diet this week. Next week, when you come back, we'll pick a day and we'll talk about resources that are available to you. Are you able to come to your treatments on time? Or do you need transportation? Those kinds of things that we help our patients with. Because some of them think, oh, no, I can drive. And yeah, you may feel great when you drive here. But after your treatment, you may feel weak, you may feel worn out, and you may not feel like driving back home. So we have patients who don't drive. They drive, but not to their dialysis treatment. So all of those things those socioeconomic things that come into play when we're caring for the whole person.
Absolutely. We only have 2 more questions. You're doing great. So I know as an educator, I'm not a social worker, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a cafeteria worker, I'm not a librarian, but sometimes I have to be all of those things.
Right.
Do y'all have somebody on staff that is a therapist, that is just a therapist that is on site, like a psychologist on site? Or does all of that kind of, like I said, like a teacher, have to come from the nurses as well? Like all of the, sorry you're feeling sad today, let me help you. Or is that all on the nurse? Kind of the way it's all on the teacher. You know, we kind of mentor, care about, ask about home, all of that, unless it's an extreme situation, then the social worker is involved. But do y'all have an on-staff therapist or a psychologist at your centers?
No. The closest thing we have to a psychologist is our social worker. And I can honestly say this happened recently at our clinic. We had a patient he came in and he was sitting in the lobby, and when I went to the lobby to call his name back for treatment, he said, I don't want to. And he said, don't touch me. I don't want to. And I said, are you okay? And he said to me, I'm okay, Miss Lena. I don't want to today. So in my head, I'm thinking, you drove here and you don't want to. And then I waited a while and I went back out to the lobby and I was talking to him and I said, do you need something? He said, I'm okay. He said, I just don't want to. He said, I'm tired of this. So at 5 in the morning, at 5 o'clock in the morning, even the social worker is not available. So you kind of, yes, like you were saying, you kind of have to just fall into that lane when you need to. And I'm, okay, well, I'll give you your space. When you feel like you're ready, just ring the doorbell and we can talk about it. If you don't want to talk about it in the lobby, we can come back to the office or go to the little side waiting room and we can talk about it. If you don't, but we care about what happens to you. And I just kept telling him that we really do care about what happens to you. You know, if you need your treatment, you need to come and get some treatment rather than none at all. So, and he eventually just came on in for his treatment. And the next treatment day, he said to me, Miss Lena, thank you. I think I just needed a little love. So at 5 in the morning, the social worker is not available. And you have to kind of just understand your patient and navigate through that situation to help them understand the importance of their treatment.
Absolutely, and I'm amazed to hear just how much every field that deals with care and learning is a lot alike. So we're going to end with some positive things. What can we do to not have to come see you if we can help it? Even though you sound like a fantastic nurse. I'm telling you, our goal of this podcast today is that people will not have to come
Thank you.
and visit your fantastic facility.
Please, no.
So give us about 5 things, the 5 top things. These are things you can look for. Also, is there a way to get tested for kidney percentages before I get sick? Kind of how we get our heart or blood pressure checked before we have a heart attack. Is there a way to get our kidneys checked so I can know?
Okay, so please do not take it for granted, because especially in our African American communities, we tend to think if it doesn't hurt, if I'm not in pain, then I'm okay. If I can I'll just drink some water, or I'll just go home and rest and it'll be okay. If you are a diabetic, or if you know someone, and most of us do, who is a diabetic, please encourage them to follow their regimen. Check your glucose levels. Please make sure that you're eating what you're supposed to eat. If you don't have a clue, if you have an endocrinologist, which is a diabetes doctor, talk to your doctor. Talk to your primary care physician. Am I doing this correctly? Please make sure that you are avoiding those peaks and valleys in your blood sugars. Try to keep it more protein, less carbs. Please, because over time, the diabetes will damage your kidneys. And also the hypertension, it is most definitely the silent killer. We have had patients as young as 15, 18 years old who had hypertension and they did not know. Parents, sisters, brothers, cousins, please go to your primary care physicians. Do your physicals. There are 5 stages of kidney disease. Once you get to stage 5 is when you have to come to me. So please make sure that if you're a diabetic, ask those questions. When you go to your doctor, ask, how are my kidneys doing? I know I'm a diabetic. How are my kidneys doing? What stage am I at? What can I be doing to prolong the process or avoid the process? And there is something called urea reduction ratio. There is that measures the amount of urea that is in your blood that determines how well your kidneys are working or how well they are not working. Ask those kinds of questions. Ask your primary care doctor, hey doc, how are my kidneys doing? How can I check that? Especially, it doesn't matter how old or how young you are. And a lot of people have the misconception, or that's for old people. No, there are young people who have juvenile diabetes. We had a neighbor that lived across the street from us, and she was a juvenile diabetic all our lives growing up. And she just recently passed away. She's younger than me, and I'm 47. So it does not matter how old or how young you are, or, oh, I feel okay, or give me another piece of that pie, or, oh, I didn't even check my sugar today. Please take it seriously. My sister and I had an aunt who loved to eat peanut butter straight out of the jar. Auntie, please stop, because that peanut butter is going to hike your blood pressure up, your blood sugar up, and you're going to have to come see me. And that's exactly what happened. Please don't take it for granted. Don't take it for granted, because once you get to that stage, there's no turning back. It's not reversible. It's not fixable. Once you get to kidney failure, that's a wrap. Now, God can do all things, but once you get to me, that's the end of the road. So just please, on this end of things, be vigilant and care for yourselves. And to a lot of our younger people, don't take for granted that you're young. Do your physicals. Get you a primary care physician. Go see your doctors. And then take care of yourselves. Get away from that video game. Get active. Drink more water. Stay away from the junk food, the fast food, the processed foods. And let's take care of each other, y'all. Let's take care of each other.
Absolutely. Well, Mrs. Hayes, thank you so much. We can see your passion and your light. Thank you for how you invest in people. I know you always don't feel like it, but as a nurse, as a teacher, as a mother, as an auntie, all of those things, sometimes we put ourselves to the side to provide what our patients need. So thank you to all of the nurses for all that you do every day to help those who are going through a sick challenge or having a hard time. And you're right, sometimes it is, I just need a little care today to get through this moment. And that's the part of that what makes what you do so tremendous. So thank you for all of those tidbits, and we'll definitely take all that in consideration.
Thank you for having me.